Hello again, David Hosey from Hosey Consulting and Training. Blue Jays, everybody's a critic. Today, I will not be talking about this gun, but its bigger brother, the G3K. The MP5, its successor, a 9mm clone, is a good example of what it is and what it's not. Let me do a couple drills here, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. First, that awkward loading, I gotta pull back chamber here. Do a 4x4 drill, 4 seconds, 4 steps, 4 rounds to the chest, 4 rounds to the head. Okay, 3.67. So within par time. A little slow, but good enough for to demonstrate what it is. Real quick here, let me clear out again and bring over its big brother. Now, I know it's a large awkward gun bag, but black interior of a vehicle with black shades, black tinting on the window, what to do. So untangle. So ergonomics are the same, except for I don't have to walk the charging handle back. This rocks in more like an AK, and I can just charge it at a go like that. So that saves about a second on your reload times. But recoil on this and cadence are going to be different. Same drill, much bigger bullets. Let's see what happens. So 2 seconds more, 5.58. Oh, but I'm getting a lot more power, and it might be a redundant putting 4 rounds into somebody's head. What that does is make me slow down, get more aimed fire in a tighter group. So that's kind of the point of the drill. So it is slower than an MP5. Still a rolled back mechanism, but with the 9mm, you've just got, well, you got that perfect balance of crouch space magic, so low recoil. This one, not so much. So why use this, or why have 308 SBRs? This is a 12.5-inch barrel at all. I've been exploring this for 4 years, with this being my test bed. I've hunted with it, we'll throw in the footage of that. I've taught with it, and experimented with different setups. This originally came with a way to hook up air buffer tube. Did with a brace on that. Tried a folding brace. One of the footage of that. That did not work well. The lump on it caused a problem. Tried different things with the light. You'll even see different positions with that in the handguard as we go through this video. But really, to answer the question, it's not only about the HK system, but short barrel 308s, or just short and handy 308s. Say the bullpups made by Kel-Tec, Tavor, or Desert Tech. Do they have a utilitarian use? Does a small truck gun in 308 be useful? Is it a good ranch gun for hunting? Does it have some good self-defense principles? We'll explore that in this video. So why a short barrel 308, and why in HK with its legacy problems or advantages in some ways? So I'm going to talk over the specifics of this and kind of the niche weapon it is, and then we'll go over specifically of 308s and compare it to other things, because a lot of times to understand something, you have to understand what it's not, to understand what it is. So historically, since the 1980s, HK offered 12.5-inch versions of the G3. This is not an HK here, this is actually by PTR, but same basic pattern. In fact, there's a large number of HK parts in this thing that have changed over. Historically, this was used to get a lot of power going through building materials and car bodies and giving a little bit more range than a 5.56 or 9mm. For comparison size, the MP5 was king at the time, was a much smaller gun, and it's almost clown shoes how much bigger this one is in it. But it has some advantages. The other one was somewhat covert use and fitting into vehicles. I know that some of these had scopes and precision stocks added on and were used as a short-range precision rifle, but I'm more considering this as the truck gun format, or just why a short-barreled 308 may be useful. So that's historical niche thing. I'll put in a couple of historical footages of, I think it was the L100A1 in British service, and you get all the cool guys doing it. This is not a clone. I don't have the Knights rail on here, or an EOTech, or early war on care IR lasers. So again, MP5 is clown shoes compared to this. You're thinking, why not an AR pistol? You get all kinds of different things and a little bit smaller package. It's also a bit lighter. You can get some of these down 7-8 pounds fully loaded. This one's like 11 pounds. But you're just not getting as much energy out of this. Even a full size AR, you can again see the size here. It's much more compact with that collapsible stock. And speaking of power, so 5.56, 20-inch barrel, the best you're going to get, maybe 1,300 feet, or not 1,300 feet, 1,300 pounds. 6.8, 300 blackout. At a 16-inch barrel, you're looking 1,500 pound-ish. So power, again, 1,900 pounds here. Looking at velocities, we'll talk over that. With this, I'm getting 2580. With South African surplus, my example of M80 ball I've got, I'm getting around 2320, which is a little bit slow, but still a fair amount of power. And that's out of a 144. That's still a lot more power than that AK, or 7.62 by 39. You'd think, well, we'll put really light velocity round, really lightweight varmint rounds, like the 110, 125 grains. Hornady 110, I'm a big fan of. I've used it out of larger and longer barreled 7.62 by 51 and had great results. But it just only is about 2,500 feet per second, which compared to this, you're getting a lot more hitting power. I did a double tap, 125 grain, jacketed hollow point. I was only getting about 2,300 feet per second. Still, just not that power that you're getting out of this. So the next thing on this thing is loud. It's not a high-pitched loud as you get with a 5.56 short barrel rifle. It's more of a deeper baritone kind of loud. And it projects it down range. When we talk why I have a flash hider on here instead of a muzzle brake. Muzzle brakes, while they can tame recoil and you can get a little bit more over that splits, the problem is in a fight, people can see what's going on. And this flash hider can hide things. I'll talk over modifying that in a little bit. The other thing is, with a muzzle brake, is a team environment. I've seen hunting with a 308 with a muzzle brake, somebody could completely deafened and discombobulated for like a half hour afterwards. That may sound weird that you're completely out of it, but he had direct fever and everything else like that. At one shot, we had the miming signals for him to get onto his game. I've seen an M60 muzzle blast right next to the head of a second lieutenant who was mostly useful, be kind of out of it for the rest of the day from that muzzle blast. The other thing is, in a fight, getting shot at is a visceral experience. You'll feel concussion going on. 5.56 does one thing. I haven't been shot directly by 7.62 by 51, but I have by 7.62 by 39. And you can kind of feel it going on through. This one you can feel a lot more. And emphasizing it here, I'm going to clear the this out real quick and show you attaching on. So AAC 51 ton. I have a suppressor that's 30 caliber, but it's not rated for this, so I'm not going to blow it out, and that kind of loses some of the advantage when I'm talking about the muzzle blast. But the blast out here will project this forward and get more muzzle blast going on. And you think, muzzle blast versus an opponent that's like racking a 12 gauge. It's not the opponent you're putting rounds into. You're putting 308 with stuff that expands within 1 inch and then carries on through barrier blind. That's going to be much more effective on target than about anything that you can be packing short of a shotgun. It's his 5 buddies that you have to worry about. People will flinch and duck when shot at. There is a more intimidation factor from this muzzle blast in a real fight. Real fights are a visceral thing, and weapons are psychological as much as a physiological thing going on. There's a reason why the Battle of Waterloo is not fought with longbows and crossbows, like previous millennium of British and French antagonism. Firearms have muzzle blast, and they have a psychological effect. That's why they're adopted so quickly. That's why we still use them. And I know there's suppressed guns and everything else like that. There is several accounts of morale issues with people shooting suppressed guns in a firefight, and people not even know they're getting shot because of the suppressor. You'll know you're getting shot at by this, and that has a psychological value. Again, not the person you're putting rounds into, their buddies, and dealing with multiple opponents, and then not having a side blast here, directing it down towards your opponents and not your teammates, so they can function in the fight with you. But this is definitively where you want high quality air pro. So why an HK setup, and why do I have this configured like this? The biggest thing over this for an AR pistol and everything else is this collapsible stock and how short it will get. You think, well, SCARs have folding stocks. And why? Yes, they do. And you can get about the same, almost exactly here, about 28.5 inches with each. This is a 16-inch one, but we've got this extra drag here. This, where I've got the thing coming out of a bag, is less drag. You can see that, even with the magazine in, than this side folding stock. Also, cost-wise, north of $3,500. This is set up right now as a hunting rifle. The person behind the camera actually here is taking a few animals with it. This with stamp, $600 stock. Everything else here is just a little over a couple grand. That's $3,500 even before you add anything off. You could cut it down to a 13-inch barrel. You will get a shorter gun. Also comparing it to the sulfur or surfer stock. Yes, this is my binary trigger stock. That is still here. You can see considerably bigger. And we'll talk about drum mags and other things here in a little bit. By the way, this thing weighs several more pounds than this. This makes this seem lightweight. 11 pounds. And Springfield Armory, yeah, America, or the M14. Even with a Sage stock, here collapsed. You get almost the same collapsed if you notice here. The magazines are about the same. If you cut that down, this is 18.5-inch barrel. This is a Mark 14 Mod 1 clone by Fulton Armory. If you cut it down here, you still get a couple inches longer. This is an option if you want to do that. So you're not going to get something this compact, this slim. I think svelte is the French word for it. It's heavy, but it balances well. It balances right here and just balances well on the hand. This heavy steel stock at the end balances out even better. And
the thing of this being a meat tenderizer, I don't find it quite as such. And we talk about ARs having inline recoil. You can see here, muzzle all the way going back straight into there. Put this a little bit lower down in here for your cheek to stock weld instead of high up, and you won't have as much of a problem. You just have to modify it from being an AR. Another thing, this does have a longer length of pull. That could be a bit of a problem, but squaring up, it does do one thing. HK's recoil is not that bad. I can find them similar to a FAL, not as nice as the Scar, but an M14, maybe even a little lighter depending on the loads, if you got the locking piece just right. But the one thing that works on that, if you choke up on that, is this hump right here hitting you in the cheek. This longer and one piece, they do make a four position one, or I could have had this modified by a gunsmith. This gets it away from me, as long as I got a good cut for body armor there, if I'm using it. So to give me, so I don't get that whacked in the face. So it's not a completely unpleasant experience shooting. Real quick, tip to butt, we'll do Garand thumb here a little bit. I talked about the muzzle device I've got. I've got a Surefire dual fuel here. Wider light. We'll do a wider thing instead of a narrow spot, wider flood. That's with the concept of this, of dealing against more opponents at close range and that psychological effect. You can kind of blind more people at once and also get more situational awareness. While this can reach at distance, it's designed kind of as a brawler's gun, but more of a brawling with a sledgehammer or a Dane axe than a precise sword like an AR would be. Right there, I have Trigicon MRO. They talk about this being non-parallax off. We'll cut into me doing my later shooting. I was doing really good groups with this. It is a 2MA gun, and by the muzzle light device, at least with this one, opens up my groups to about 4 MOA. But again, 2 MOA at 500 yards is 10 inches. It also being slightly higher up here, instead of getting it lower as I could, gives me a more heads-up view, and I can take in more of my environment around me. Going forward a little bit, I don't have a tape switch here. I've had a little bit of bad experiences with tape switches in real life. They never seem to last the deployment. They're fine if you've got enough replacements for them. I can work, here we can do this, you can see, I can work with this thumb, I can switch to my right hand, I can work it with the thumb here. But this allows me to do a C-clamp, and you really want to do a C-clamp. This is just a cut-off MRO here. I did not do the extended safety selector, the Magpul one, which is nice. I have them on my MP5 clones. But I can find the narrow plastic here that PTR puts out. This is a narrower grip than some more conventional ones. And I can find that I can actually use my thumb on it. And then I prefer 20-round magazines. Again, that rock and lock, and you can rock this in, unlike an MP5 with a fully loaded magazine. So reloading is less complicated. They do make 30-rounders. You can see this is welded on here. Problem with this is, one, if there's a bag in it, doesn't work as well. And two, the only malfunctions I've had with this are with this magazine. And God, it's just a sample size of one, I guess. It was sub-freezing, and the gun was fairly dirty and dry. 500 plus rounds without cleaning. And it had some failure to feeds, dinged up the sides here. I don't know if you can see that quite as well. So this is an edit in here of that rather long monologue with a couple other issues with the gun, answering some obvious questions. One, why not use 50-round mags? They won't fit in the magazine well. Don't know why for the X product mags. HK magazines, both aluminum and steel wheel. I haven't used any polymer ones, so I don't know about that. The old thermal molds I haven't seen for quite a while. Other issues with this is the obvious one. Why don't I use a binary trigger? screws up the cadence with this. I can't hold it as accurately as I can with that binary gun, which fully loaded with a mag like this, all the extra crap on it, longer and heavier barrel, is about 5 pounds heavier. In fact, if you go back to my binary video, my 4x4 drill is about a second faster with that binary gun with this, but this is a more of a carbine that you can pack around with you. And I just can't quite do that cadence with the binary and control it and actually have accurate fire. Not blasting into the berm, but accurate aimed fire. You just have to slow down your cadence with this gun with the 308. That's just an issue with it. Second thing on this is trigger. There's a defect in this. So for an AR, you would have a little bit better ergonomics, maybe not as compact. Trigger on the HK. We'll get going here. Make sure I'm clear. So trigger, pull it back, feels like a wall, creep, mush, breaks about 10 pounds. Reset, long, slow, mush again. I can feel the wall here, 10 pounds. So that's just kind of a defect, or something you have to work with. You can see the long range stuff I can do with it. It may slow down a little bit. You just got to be conscious of the trigger. Once you get past the mush, there is a wall to it, so it's not as bad. Some really good guns you think would be otherwise, like an SVD. I think this has got a better trigger than that, at least to my feel. We'll get back to the monologue of me and writing out the thoughts on this. So, why actually carry this? And what would be your setup for it? I'm doing this in 2022. The past 2 years, have you found yourself wondering, do I need an urban gun that I can carry in my truck in a compact package, but still have power that can smash through vehicles and say common building material, with a psychological advantage of a muzzle blast, but yet still carry enough power it's not going to stupefy me to be able to deter a large number of opponents? Where have I thought that concept in the past few years? Maybe wearing some soft body armor, having this in that nice compact bag, and having like a Blue Force gear lightweight thing with 80 rounds on board. Without more otherwise. Your truck's carrying it, or your car. There could be an advantage there. That was kind of the historical niche. When the SAS originally used this, they were doing it in Northern Ireland. What was happening in Northern Ireland in the 1980s and 90s? Well, working out of vehicles against an urban opponents, doing terrorism, and you need to smash through vehicles with the occasional thing to reach out past a couple blocks and do some good work. Also heavier building materials. And then add on a white light that's not going to do a narrow spot down 3 blocks, but can light up an entire street for 1.5 blocks. That's something that's useful. It is a niche weapon. Is it as lightweight as the AR pistol? No. This is a rapier, more of a surgical item compared to the sledgehammer again. The battle axe, if you need something to go heavy and do heavy things. So I'm going some long range on this when I can do it distance. You'll see that I do it offhand, sitting, prone. Well, I've actually done some hunting from benches or fighting almost from bench-like materials inside of buildings. Most of the times that doesn't happen. So if you train and work with a weapon, it should be something that can be used from field positions. We'll see that next. So we're at 200 yards here. We're going to try 2, 3, and 4. With the 50-200 yard zero I should be close with a fraction of an inch for the 50 yard zero here. Unlike an MP5, it's more like an AK. I can rock and lock it in on a closed bolt with a full magazine.
So fairly easy. Hits here. There. It's hard to see from there, but that was a head on the hole, a hold on the head. So my target's 8 inches across otherwise. So 2 MOA gun, fairly easy hold at this distance. We'll go to 3 and 400 after this and see how it works from there. So we messed up the lay of the ground right here. At 300, or actually about 310 right here, I can't get a good prone position, so I'll just do it sitting. About a foot drop. Weather right now, we'll lose a little bit of velocity. We're right about freezing. It's been going up and down on the 30s mark, so the ground's a little frozen, a little bit muddy. On the plus side right now, I don't have much wind, so I don't have to fight that in my estimate. So we'll see how this does. And one lastly thing here with the cold, hadn't put the cat stuff, the anti-fog on this, and my breath is beginning to fog it up ever so slightly. So if I breathe more through my nose to stop being a mouth breather, I can shoot better here. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm around 420 yards right here, having the hold over 3 feet. I can get down to the prone now, but I only could see the upper half of my target, maybe just head and shoulders, but since I'm holding up higher, I'm actually just holding above the head and arcing it into the chest over the ground here. Pretty good for a 12.5 inch barrel 308 and a 2 MOA red dot. Have to turn it down a little bit here. We're actually technically just past sunset, but not super overcast. So there's enough ambient light to see this. I've actually turned this thing down just short of the night vision settings. Be able to distinguish the dot from the background. I have a mostly green steel target. So it can do it. This is kind of challenging shooting. Pushing your equipment and yourself is how you really learn these things. If I was doing this on a bench in perfect weather, I wouldn't be learning these skills later or be able to teach these skills later to other people. Push your equipment in yourself, you'll appreciate the benefits. Now I know what this and me will do.
So, versatile gun, but heavy, and still a bit of a niche gun. To the question of 308 SBRs or 308 AR pistols in general are useful, I think yes, but still a niche thing. They can kind of be a general purpose gun, but it's a little heavier, and a general purpose gun should be a little bit wider. This is fully loaded. This is pushing just short of 13 pounds. If you put a variable power optic on that, it's going to go into boat anchor territory. So it's not quite that, but it is utility in a niche gun. Is it the perfect truck gun for you? If you've seen my videos, the PS90 and 5.7, the antithesis of this, lightweight, balances tied in and just a just enough round, has been my truck gun for the past decade. But again, times are changing. This can have some useful and can roll with me sometimes. If you're interested in this concept or training with it, and training with somebody who actually has explored this concept and put some time and effort into it, I've had this for 4 years. You can roll in the hunting one. That's when I got this, when I used it as a pistol. So what I have in this is just not the time I put into a review for like a couple days or something. This is a long experience into this, several thousand rounds, and I own this concept. Not that I'm the originator of it, but I understand it, and it's not just words to me. It's something I can do. If you're interested in doing some training, or even using this gun some, I've got a couple clients actually use it, contact me at my website. Again, thank you for your time and consideration. Good night. So I put in a little bit of extra here. The ballistics that I got set up for this, for the Mark 319, I've got a 50, 200 0. There's less than a fraction of an inch in this. When you see the long range shots in there, I was doing 12-inch hold roughly for 300 yards and a 32-inch hold for 400. You're looking for 500, which starts to lose some utility here. This is a fairly easy hold. You also saw me say I was shooting when I was prone. I couldn't see the top of the target. What I was actually doing was the ground rolled like this. Here's my target. I was prone here. My camera person was behind me so they could see things, but I was down on the ground here. And I could only see a fraction of the top of the target there. So I was doing my aim right about here, about a foot over it, and then dropping my rounds down into here for my group. So I was actually shooting at something I couldn't see. Thought my cameraman was a safety for me, allowing me to see the right thing here. I've done this in precision stuff out to 900. A lot of people have done this, and it's a technique on things. Something that you can do on this is, for example, say you want to hit a target. This was an old machine gunner's trick. And you know the ground is going to roll like this, or you're kind of behind the equivalent of a berm. You can find another aim point above it, or even put in like an aiming stick on the ground, and have your observer off to a side tell you the shoot, and then drop rounds into it, almost like an indirect fire thing. For this to be safe, you know, the fourth rule, you know what your target is left behind it. You're depending on your observer to be able to do this. Again, on the target I was actually doing, steel target like this, all I could see was about yay much, maybe a square footage, not to scale here. This is all goofed up here. I was aiming right here and having my rounds impact down in here. Side note here, I had like a 2-inch group, which for the 3 rounds, which is really a statistical anomaly. I'm not going to say, oh, it shoots a half MOA. No, it's a 2 MOA gun. This is how funny some people getting 9-hole reviews doing their real 9-hole groups. I just had 3 rounds impact that close together. More of a statistical anomaly. But this aiming here, then impacting down here, is something you can do working with a partner, and for distance shooting, something you can do. The shorter barrel gun allowed me to do it at 400. You can do it at further ranges for something else. Again, you have to use something for safety on it, but it is something you can have kind of in your back pocket if you need to take a shot and not be observed, and have somebody off to the line of that, and they would not see you or your muzzle flash per se, or even know where the fire is coming from. It's kind of dropping on in. Anyway, just a little food for thought and skills to put in your back pocket to work on. But it's knowing the gope on your gun and confirming it. Thanks again.